First, and this is a Fox News alert. Felony charges filed in the Jussie Smollett case, and the main suspect isn't a MAGA hat-wearing Trump supporter as initially thought. It's Smollett himself.
Was this alleged hate crime all just a hoax? It's starting to look that way. The breaking developments as the actor is about to face a judge. And bracing for another migrant caravan at the border, this one heading right for the area where Beto O'Rourke wants to tear down fencing.
We are live on the ground with what officials are doing to curb the crisis. And it may be the dead of winter, but things are heating up because Victoria's Secret bathing suits are back. Six bathing if you're a girl.
Poor guy. Fox and Friends First continues right now. On this Thursday morning, I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Jillian Mealy. As always, thank you for starting your day with us. Let's get right to this Fox News alert and more information continuing to unfold. Empire actor Jussie Smollett charged with a felony for allegedly staging a hate crime attack. He's due in court for a bond hearing in Chicago this afternoon.
Yeah, prosecutors say that he filed a false police report claiming that masked men put a noose around his neck, poured chemicals on him, and shouted, "This is MAGA country," along with racial and homophobic slurs. All this allegedly happened in downtown Chicago. If convicted, Smollett could face 3 years in prison. His attorney says at this point he enjoys the presumption of innocence.
The bombshell charges come after surveillance video came to light showing a pair of brothers buying red hats and ski masks hours before the alleged attack. Those brothers have been questioned by police and have claimed that Smollett paid them to stage the assault. Their lawyer says the actor needs to come clean.
I think Jussie Smollett should come clear because the truth will set him free. I think that Jussie's conscience is probably not letting him sleep right now, so I think he should unload that conscience and just come out and tell the American people what actually happened.
Empire producers are reportedly considering suspending Smollett from the show as this investigation continues to unfold.
Keep it here. We'll keep you updated throughout the day.
Sure. All right, no matter the outcome of the Smollett case, investigators have spent a lot of their valuable time combing through all this evidence.
Chicago anti-violence activist Tio Hardiman says this has all taken much-needed attention away from the real problems facing the city.
If Jussie, staged the attack, he's dead wrong because he's receiving all the attention, and we just had a 1-year-old child, a toddler, shot in the head named Baby Chase, and he's not getting any attention, and we have a 14 to 16% homicide clearance rate, and if Jussie is guilty of the charges, he's dead wrong because he's taking much-needed attention from a serious problem in Chicago. I've been in Chicago all my life, and like I said, I've never, ever heard of an attack like this, and Jussie should stop playing games with the people if he's wrong because he owes everybody in Chicago an apology. Yeah. Where's the news that about people being killed? He's taking resources from much-needed communities where violence is running rampant out here.
More than 180 people have been shot in Chicago so far this year.
A big update here. The FBI's former top attorney wanted to charge Hillary Clinton over her private email use, but was talked out of it. Fox News confirming that James Baker's admission came in for James Baker, and the admission was in closed-door testimony on Capitol Hill.
And he continued to battle, according to his own testimony, with people in his office, along with Comey as well. He had these arguments going back and forth until the very end.
All right, despite calling Clinton's private email use alarming and appalling, Baker told lawmakers he was convinced to change his mind after arguments with senior colleagues. The FBI has consistently claimed that top officials agreed with former Director James Comey's decision to not pursue charges against Clinton. That might be falling apart now.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's probe is expected to wrap up as early as next week. Sources telling Fox News that recent shakeups at the Justice Department are a sign that the investigation is winding down. Meanwhile, President Trump is slamming the former acting director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe.
I think Andrew McCabe has made a fool out of himself over the last couple of days, and he really looks to me like sort of a poor man's J. Edgar Hoover. I think he's a disaster.
McCabe has done several TV interviews recently where he's opened up about launching investigations into President Trump and alleged Russian ties. He's even suggested the president could be a Russian agent.
A brand new wave of migrants arrive at the Mexican border ready to cross into the U.S. They're now camped out near the same existing border fencing that likely 2020 presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke wants to tear down.
Griff Jenkins is live on the ground in Mexico with the caravan as those migrants prepare to start their day. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jillian, Rob. Yeah, the Casa del Migrante here in Juarez is full at capacity, in part because a new caravan, yet another one, has crossed 1,000 or more in the southern border of Mexico. They clashed with officials and now are on their march north. But part of the other reason why this is full is because in Piedras Negras, the place where I spoke to you last from the border, they have closed that shelter and moved it over, some of the people over here. And that's why the border cities along the southwest border are being flooded. If you look at the numbers in El Paso, just across the bridge here from us in the U.S., they are having unbelievable numbers. They're up 478% increase in apprehensions. If you look at this year's fiscal year, just the last 5 months, it's 43,238 compared to only 7,481 this past year. Now, this is only one of two shelters. We went in the other shelter yesterday. You can see it's the same scene. Migrants crowded, some families, some individual men, but it's the same thing where they're trying to wait to get into the United States, either legally or illegally. We spoke to one of the migrants, Randy Davidson, and I asked him about Beto O'Rourke's comments about taking down the wall. He says, bring that wall down. Listen.
When you hear the Democrat candidates say, take the wall down, there should not be a wall, how do you feel about that?
Very comfortable. I guess if you ask many people here what they feel about that, they're going to say, that's like very comfortable.
Take the wall down.
Take the wall down.
Now, yesterday, DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, guys, was down in El Salvador meeting with the countries there, the Northern Triangle, trying to get some sort of agreement to try and stop the root cause of why so many migrants are coming. Rob, Jillian?
All right, Griff, back at the border. Thank you so much.
A Coast Guard lieutenant accused of plotting a mass terror attack on the U.S. is due in court today. Prosecutors say Christopher Paul Hassan had a hit list of possible targets, including Democratic leaders and journalists. He also wanted to kill every last person on Earth. The self-proclaimed white nationalist stockpiling 15 firearms with more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition in his basement in Maryland. He's facing weapons and drug charges, but officials say that's just the tip of the iceberg.
The Trump administration is refusing to allow an American ISIS bride back into the United States. Hoda Muthana left Alabama to join that terror group in Syria in 2014, and now she is begging to come back home with her 18-month-old son. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says she's not even an American citizen, writing in part she does not have any legal basis, no valid U.S. passport, no right to a passport, nor any visa to travel to the United States. Her attorney denies that claim, saying that she is a citizen. They say she was born in New Jersey after her father finished his job as a diplomat, which would have barred her citizenship.
Stay tuned for more on that. Florida lawmakers are considering a ban on sanctuary cities. The bill has moved through the first committee. It would require all local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal agencies if they arrest someone with an immigration hold. New Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has vowed to put an end to sanctuary cities.
All right, 9 minutes after the hour, the Bob Mueller investigation appears to finally be coming to a close after nearly 2 years at this point. Also, a new confession from the FBI's former top lawyer that he wanted to charge Hillary Clinton for her emails, but was talked out of it. Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert live to weigh in on both those stories coming up.
Plus, how about this one? Honest Abe is honestly hot? I can't make this up. A steamy statue that is causing quite a stir online. Stay tuned for that story. Should the Mueller report be released while you're abroad next week?
That'll be totally up to the new Attorney General. He's a tremendous man, a tremendous person who really respects this country and respects the Justice Department. So that'll be totally up to him.
All right, nearly 2 years later, and the Mueller probe may finally be wrapping up.
New reports indicating the special counsel could be ready to submit his report on Russian collusion as early as next week. So, what can we expect?
Joining us live to talk about this, Texas Congressman and House Judiciary Member, Representative Louis Gohmert. Thank you, sir, for coming on this morning. When this all started off, we were promised Russian collusion, treasonous, stealing an election with Vladimir Putin, and it's all about to come to a head. What do you expect?
Well, I expect Mueller to want to drag this out even further if he possibly could, but 2 years is a long time to drag it out. But what a dream job for him. He had just been begging President Trump for to appoint him FBI director again, and when he didn't get it, he felt a bit abused, and so then he gets to investigate the guy that wouldn't hire him. So a dream job for him. He was involved with his FBI director with Rosenstein when in the real Russian investigation over there trying to illegally get access to our uranium, which they were successful in doing with the help of Hillary Clinton, and the Clinton Foundation, of course, benefited. But so the longer he can drag these things out, the more limitations will run out. But there has been no Russian collusion except by Hillary Clinton and Steele and all of those folks that were using the Russians to get dirt, even though it was fabricated. So I don't know. I don't think we can expect a lot from the new Attorney General. He's close friends with Mueller, and his wife is close friends with Mueller's wife. I know a lot of us would like to see the truth come out, but as long as Mueller is involved, and as vindictive as the man is, he's shown it over and over again, I don't think you can expect too much in the way of justice. It'll be just us applying to him and his cronies.
But even if nothing comes out super juicy against the president as far as Russian collusion goes, you still don't expect that to be enough for the critics, do you?
No, it won't be enough for the critics, but you've noticed here this week the comments about what to expect have been trying to utilize the thing that's made me successful to the limited extent I am, and that is low expectations. If they can just set the expectations lowly enough, then people go, well, that's better than we thought. So they've been saying, it's not going to satisfy people. But I'm guarantee you, Mueller is going to use the report to slap at Trump and his administration any which way he can. It won't be enough for the Democrats, but it is going to be rather snarky, I can promise you.
Sir, you go after, Bob Mueller pretty hard there. It's worth noting, though, he does have a pretty good reputation in Washington and is known as a straight shooter and a Republican.
Rob, that's with people that haven't paid attention to what he did. I did a 48-page article on his history. I was really nice to him the first time I questioned him as FBI director, but then if you go back and look, he ran off thousands and thousands of years of experience at the FBI. He wanted non-thinking people that would just salute the flag and go forward. They cleaned up the FBI so that you didn't have anybody that really understood radical Islam. They purged the training materials so we had agents that didn't trying to be truthful on these things, and it just highlights the fact that Comey was not being honest and forthcoming when he said, no reasonable prosecutor. He didn't talk to any prosecutors, but of course there was evidence there, and it should have been pursued, but we've seen what happens. If you step forward and say, we need to investigate Hillary Clinton, pursue these charges, then you're not going to be long for the world there. We have seen that in other things that Mueller has handled. So I think the report, it's going to go beyond the low expectations that are being given for it, but it's not going to touch Hillary. It's going to protect her as Mueller did all along.
Well, okay.
All right.
It's quite a
I
prediction.
wish I could be more optimistic, but you got to look at who the players are.
That's your
Mueller,
perspective,
Weissman,
and that's why we brought you on. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Congressman, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Rob.
It is 19 minutes after the hour now. Colin Kaepernick settled his grievance with the NFL for him as an icon. The New Jersey everyone is talking about, not the state of Jersey.
Good clarification. A liberal lawmaker embroiled in a coffee controversy in the midst of a mission to find cat in a modestly snowy New York. He stopped to take a jab at President Trump. Social media calling out this tweet. Carly's going to explain all of this coming up.
From Hollywood star to suspect, Jussie Smollett now charged with a felony as his story about an alleged hate attack continues to spiral.
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7. Sirius XM 115 is here with the reaction online.
Wow.
Boy, this story.
My
Everybody can't get enough
Now
of
a felony charge. This is obviously a huge topic of conversation on social media, and the sympathy has really left the building for him at this point. People are angry. Stephen, summing up the thoughts of many, saying, I do care that this will make it much harder for victims of actual assaults to come forward and to be believed. Aaron, showing a bit of sympathy, though, says, I just want to know why. What's the reason for this? He's clearly a confused young man. I hope he gets the help for whatever it is. But Eric saying, great news, make an example of actions like this. Filing a false police report can be charged as either a misdemeanor or a felony. In his case, he was charged with a felony, which sort of gives some perspective as to how seriously they are taking this. He's facing 1 to 3 years, and he's got that bail hearing at 1:30 p.m. Central Time today. He still maintains his innocence, though.
Yeah, this whole thing is
If
wild.
it's false, it goes so much beyond just the report. I mean, the GMA, the crying on the interview. I mean, if it's false, it's the most phony thing
I mean,
I
it
can
was
recall seeing in
political,
a
it was
long
racist,
time.
it was homophobic. Like, there's a lot going on there.
Unreal. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how this turns out.
Totally.
All right, Eric Swalwell, California Democrat, pretty
Looking for
decently
coffee.
likable guy, but the lamest tweet ever. I mean, so wimpy. In this
Listen, he turned a trip to go to Starbucks into this political statement, tweeting this. It's snowing in New York. I need coffee. The closest cafe is inside Trump Tower. This is me walking to an alternative. Well, now, folks on social media, they're roasting him. At least conservatives are. Like Lisa Booth,
This
who
one's
says,
funny.
please, it's New York. There's coffee shops everywhere. You just wanted to post about Trump and being dramatic. Sad, exclamation point. Robin tweets, advice. Take the high road and tweet positive thoughts. Avoid petty, negative comments. And Williams says, Congressman Swalwell is a true hero. If you don't believe me, just ask him and he'll tell you so. I liked Robin's tweet about taking the high road. That's a pretty lonely road in the land of Twitter.
Yes, it is.
Not too many cars on that
why I
one.
barely
Is
tweet
there a high
anymore.
road on Twitter? I haven't seen it yet.
That's right, hard to
We'll
find.
try to find it for you.
Find it, yeah.
Okay, so I don't understand how a statue is causing this much of a stir. Carly, please explain.
Time to make Rob uncomfortable.
Hey, we do it every day.
A bit of renewed interest in our 16th president, courtesy of this tweet that says, reminder that the Los Angeles Federal Courthouse has a statue of Abraham Lincoln where he's a shirtless young stud, suggestively tugging at his waistband like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. Abraham Lincoln like you've never seen him before. Ned tweets, honest abs. Alex says, the Gettysburg undress. And JD tweets, Bay Lincoln.
This is where social's fun.
Look at
Absolutely.
that. That's a good one there.
You know, I'm sure that when you woke up this morning, you said, all right, we're going to talk about Mueller, we'll talk about Smollett. A shirtless Abraham Lincoln, I have a feeling wasn't on your
It
list.
wasn't on the
Yes,
list.
there you go.
No.
Today,
From the images I've seen, that is a very flattering statue. Good old honest.
it's called Young Lincoln, if you want to Google it later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carly, thanks a lot. 26 minutes after the hour, Empire actor Jussie Smollett now charged in an alleged hate crime on himself. If this turns out to be a hoax, the question is, why would anybody do this? Coming up, one attorney tells us some possible motives behind his actions.
I'm in love. Pizza lovers, rejoice. You don't have to feel guilty anymore for wanting to eat it for the most important meal of the day. We'll explain.
Oh, we have an update quickly on the story of one of those ISIS brides who's now begging to come back to the United States. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that this Alabama woman, Hoda Muthana, will not be allowed to return, adding, quote, she is not a U.S. citizen. She does not have any legal basis, no valid U.S. passport, no right to a passport, nor any visa to travel to the United States. Well, her family's attorneys dispute those claims about the woman's citizenship and says she was born in Jersey. They also claim that Muthana is an innocent victim.
I think Huda, in that sense, is another victim of Daesh. She resents them. She hates them. She hates what they brainwashed her into becoming. And she honestly is tremendously relieved now that she sees the light and is speaking out against them. I think, in a sense, it's very cathartic for her that she's finally lifted this burden off her shoulders.
Oh, and that's the care sign is in the background. Did you see that? Oh, great. Remember, this is same 24-year-old who doesn't think she deserves any punishment for shacking up with not one but 3 ISIS terrorists.
Do you think you deserve a punishment for what you did?
Maybe therapy lessons, maybe a process that will ensure us that we'll never do this again.
Maybe we can give her equine therapy. Well, last night on this show, Piers Morgan talked about her completely lack of empathy.
Now she wants to think, hey, I'm sorry, I know that the ISIS dream in Syria is over. I know that my ISIS terrorist husbands have now been killed, and I want to come home because I'm now a reformed character. I'm not buying any of it. She remains a very clear, a present danger to Americans and to American lives.
Well, she's currently being held at a refugee camp in Syria, and apparently only came to the realization that joining ISIS was wrong this past Sunday. We're going to keep following this story for you. And also coming up now, on to another important story.
That'll be totally up to the new Attorney General. He's a tremendous man, a tremendous person who really respects this country and respects the Justice Department. So that'll be totally up to him.
Well, it's his second year now. The reports reveal it could be wrapped up as early as next week. And once the Mueller report has been received by newly minted Attorney General Bill Barr, he will then decide what to give to Congress, if anything, and to the public. The investigation, initiated by a bunch of rogue FBI agents, has been an anchor, kind of an anvil, around Donald Trump's presidency since his earliest months in office. Here to unpack all of this for us is John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General for Bush 43. Now, John, a lot of folks on other networks contend tonight that Bill Barr is forcing an end to this investigation. What do you think?
I think that's far, far from the truth. Under the regulations under which Mueller was appointed, he's going to complete his investigation and submit a report to Bill Barr. Bill Barr, as Attorney General, then has to write his own report to Congress, and Barr is the one who's going to decide how much of the report to make public. Personally, I hope he makes all of it public, or as much as he can without revealing any secrets or grand jury testimony, because I think it's going to clear President Trump. I haven't seen any evidence of President Trump committing any crime, and so when that report comes out, that's going to, I think, clear him. The faster and better and more that's available, I think the better for President Trump and the country, so we can get moving on to other important issues.
The former FBI acting director, Andy McCabe, is hawking a book, and he seems to be contradicting himself between interviews. Let's watch.
Rosenstein was actually openly talking about whether there was a majority of the cabinet who would vote to remove the president.
That's correct. Counting votes. Or possible votes.
Did he present that idea to other cabinet officials? Because, as you know, he had to count heads to see, do I have the votes to remove the president?
Not that I'm aware of. I have no indication of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little fuzzy there for him. I mean, the counting votes, will he present, not counting votes?
Well, first of all, it shows how over their heads these people were.
Well, that's a very benign way of looking at it. Exactly. McCabe's over his head. He lied 3 times to the Inspector General.
No, McCabe, I don't think, is over his head. I think Rosenstein's over his head and panicked and allowed these people who are clearly biased against President Trump to occupy the vacuum and push, I think, this insane idea to trigger the 25th Amendment against the sitting president who's able to perform the functions of the job. So I think what you see here...
Well, one of them is lying. One of them, Rosenstein said it never happened. This guy said it happened, but he's a proven liar. But it's pretty embarrassing, this whole story. The idea that an FBI director or acting director should be taking part in any meeting, it's just, it's unconscionable. But it demonstrates why this investigation was a fraud from the beginning.
Well, look, McCabe has already been found to have lied to investigators. Rosenstein, if you read carefully what he says, has not actually denied it. Rosenstein has actually said, well, I didn't actually carry out the wiretapping. He never denies that he talked to McCabe about it. I cannot believe that the highest echelons of our Justice Department law enforcement officials were considering trying to remove the president under constitutional provision, which is for presidents who are sick or ill or have been shot.
Yeah, well, and anytime he's pressed on it, he always falls back on these generalities. Well, he fired Comey. He's totally entitled to fire Comey. All the things he claimed. I want to play something. This is from our own Judge Napolitano on with Shepard Smith about whether this behavior could rise to the level of obstruction of justice. This alleged phone call with acting Attorney General Mark Whitaker to put back a judge who had recused himself on the Cohen case in the Southern District of New York. Let's watch.
The phone call would be evidence of what? Corrupt intent. That is, an effort to use the levers of power of the government for a corrupt purpose.
Would that be obstruction?
Yes. It would be attempted obstruction. It would only be obstruction if it succeeded. But if you try to interfere with a criminal prosecution that may knock at your own door by putting your ally in there, that is clearly an attempt to obstruct justice.
Look, I'm very fond of Judge Napolitano, but I think he's just wrong on this one. And he's actually insulting the personal ethics of the United States Attorney and President Trump. There's no reason to think the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, probably the most important federal prosecutor in the country outside Washington, would take that prosecution over and deliberately tank it to protect the president. That is an accusation against the ethics of the prosecutors who are working for him. So I think Judge Napolitano is just getting a little bit overexcited about this, alleged phone call that's on the front page.
But the president is entitled to have an opinion. So if the president invents, it's like, why is this guy recusing himself? This is ridiculous. Why do people recuse? I'm just guessing. I bet that's what he said. If he said anything,
it's
that's what he
more
said.
Than that. The president's entitled to more than an opinion. He's entitled to appoint the officers who are subordinate,
who aren't going to be recusing themselves at every 5 seconds.
Exactly. Under the Constitution, he's the chief prosecutor. All the prosecutors work for him. He gets to appoint the people who serve in office.
Where are we right now? I mean, this Mueller thing's been going on for 2 years. We get a sense it's winding down. It doesn't seem like there's anything. Not only there's nothing there, most likely, but the entire basis for starting this investigation seems politically motivated.
I think it goes back to the first segment you had. It goes back to Rosenstein being panicked over his head, and McCabe and these biased FBI agents sort of filling the vacuum and launching an investigation that's not clear. Could have just been handled by regular prosecutors, regular DOJ, and it would have been over a long time ago. So I think what's going to happen is the report will get issued. I hope Attorney General Barr releases it to the public. I think it's in Trump's advantage for everyone to see that. And then the form will really move to Congress. If Congress wants to try to launch impeachment investigations,
good luck.
Let them have at it.
We'll remember what happened when they did that to Bill Clinton. Didn't work out so well for the Republicans. John Yoo, thank you so much. And coming up, the pathetic culture war ensnaring a Hollywood star who's been dead for 40 years, and Obama is speaking out on the culture. And I am astounded. Yes, seen and unseen with Raymond Arroyo next. It's time for our seen and unseen segment where we expose the big cultural stories of the day. And tonight's segment has it all: John Wayne, vampires, and Barack Obama. Joining us now with details, Raymond Arroyo, Fox News contributor and New York Times best-selling author of, let me see that book, the brand new book out, I'm holding it, Will Wilder and the Amulet of Power, and we're on page 132, and I promise that's how much we've read. It is so good. All right.
Do book report.
All right, Raymond, why is John Wayne and the famous statue under assault this week?
Famous statue, Laura. We all know the famous kissing sailor image after the war, Alfred Eisenstadt's photograph of VJ Day. When the war came to an end, George Mendonça, the sailor captured in the image, thought it was an important memento of the war.
The picture is still known around the whole world as a symbol of the end of World War II. This is one of the good things that ever happened to me.
Mendoza died this week, God bless him. In the wake of his death, a statue capturing that moment was defaced with the words #MeToo. The implication being that the nurse in the picture did not consent to be kissed.
This is related to an internet sensation. Trolls dug up a 1971 Playboy interview with John Wayne, the acting legend. In the interview, he refers to gays using a pejorative, says Indians were selfishly trying to keep this land, and he's glad we took it from them. And then he says this, with a lot of blacks, there's quite a bit of resentment along with their dissent, and possibly rightfully so. But we can't all of a sudden get down on our knees and turn everything over to the leadership of the blacks. I believe in white supremacy, Duke said, until the blacks are educated to the point of responsibility. Now, Laura, what I don't like about both of these stories is we're judging the past in light of shifting moral, ethic, and cultural codes of today. We can't do that.
Well, they're either defacing statues or pulling them down. Yeah. So and I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying this. This is what the Taliban does. The Taliban used to rip down historical markers, destroy churches. ISIS did the same thing, does the same thing. They don't want any vestige of what was.
Well,
even if it's bad, they don't want any vestige. Even if it's good, they don't want anything.
But these are two iconic images of America.
Right.
John Wayne and the sailor, the release, freedom. They're impugning America. They're impugning America. And if you want to settle a racist score, if you want to go settle scores, talk to Jesse Smollett. Go talk to the governor and lieutenant governor of Virginia. They got plenty of scores to settle there. Deal with the living, not the dead. We can't go back to a man who's been dead for 40 years and an interview 50 years old. It's just,
that
interview was born in 1907.
Okay, yeah. But that interview has been out there for 40, 50 years.
At least. Laura, on HBO's Silicon Valley, some of these high-tech titans get blood transfusions from young people in an effort to stave off age. Now, this is actually based in reality. There are tech moguls who are obsessed with this practice of trying to stay young. Well, the FDA has come out claiming that this young blood movement, which is supposed to help memory loss and slow aging, is fraudulent. They claim that it's dangerous and could lead to infections, allergic, respiratory, and cardiovascular risks. What do you make of these vampires?
Okay.
Elderly vampires.
They obviously don't believe that the next place they'll go would be better. Number one, right? So but it's like sleeping in the oxygen chamber. Okay, it's like, guess what? As Thurgood Marshall said, he said, I'm getting old. Things are falling off me. That's what happens.
Rather than taking blood from the young, spend time with them. You can capture their spirit. That's what people should be doing.
Yeah, don't they know that the aging involves your cellular makeup? Your cells are dying right
We're
now.
running out of time.
All right, former President Barack Obama spoke at my brother's Keeper event this week and talked pop culture and its effect on young men.
Let's face it, a lot of hip-hop and rap music is built around me showing how I got more money than you. I can disrespect you and you can't do nothing about it. I'm going to talk about you and punk you. If you are very confident about your sexuality, you don't have to have 8 women around you twerking.
I like how his sexuality. Is that a Hawaiian accent?
Yeah, he kind of gets.
Hey, Chicago. But he's good on this. He has been
very good.
He has been good. And my Brother's Keeper initiative was one of the best things he did as president.
I agree.
actually liked it.
And his example as a father.
A great dad, and I like the fact that he's talking about the hip hop.
I hope he
Some of it
uses
is fun,
his
but
perch at Netflix, his production deal, to put forward positive images for men across the political.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter. All right, and before we go, tell me about this I know the book because we're reading the book. Because my sons and I are reading the book. Maria, she's not, but she's a little older. But they love this book. Just out, Will Wilder, The Amulet of Power.
Well, let me tell you. First, it's an adventure for the whole family. I love, and I'll show you some of these images, Laura. I've been getting images from young readers. When I go on tour and I see these kids, how excited they are about having the book, the adventure they go on. This is about a 12-year-old who does what we all wish we could have done at that age. Get an amulet that gives us superpowers. It's based in Samson, which is the model of all these superheroes. But what I love about it, it ends up being a discussion and an adventure about the true source of power and strength, where it comes from. And I think that battle between good and evil, kids recognize it. It's good to lean into it and explain it.
I will just say one thing.
It
begins at the Louvre.
It does, at World War II.
And World War II, at the Louvre, and he has an ability to see evil.
Yes.
Wonder where that
I'm in
idea
Washington.
came
I
from.
see evil all the time.
Me
Big
too.
deal, Will Wilder, in your pith helmet. All right. Grayman, congratulations. And does the American left care more about the civil liberties of illegals or keeping America safe? The latest examples of illegal crime are unreal. They're never covered. We're going to cover it with Tom Homan next. Plus, my Twitter smackdown of the day is still to come. A certain Democratic congressman felt my wrath. Oh, it's so nice, though. Stay there.
We will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court.
He's like Karnak from Carson. He had it all down. Of course he was right. The 16 left-wing states suing President Trump. And of course, it's all been assigned to Oakland, California-based Judge Haywood Gilliam, an Obama appointee. Perfect. This all played out just as constitutional expert John Eastman and I predicted last night. You can find a district court judge, as we've seen in all these challenges, John, to the president's temporary travel ban, so many other moves. You can find a district court judge to issue a nationwide injunction thwarting the president's policy, at least for a time.
Well, they have, and they judge shop. They brought this in the Northern District of California, where there's not a single judge that was appointed by a Republican.
Oh, I got to get more judges on that court. The legal merits of the case are one thing, but there are plenty of glaring national security examples to support the president's move. Just this week, 6 illegals linked to a Mexican cartel arrested in North Carolina for drug trafficking, meth and heroin. Now, the massive operation including transporting large amounts of coke and meth across state lines. In Louisiana, U.S. Customs Border Protection arrested a convicted child sex offender who had been previously deported. Hiberub Hernandez Martinez was convicted in 2009 of first-degree sexual offense involving a child and served 84 months, in prison. After his release, they say he was deported, I guess in 2016, but then he made his way back here. Joining me now to discuss is Tom Homan, former acting director of ICE, Fox News contributor. Tom, we just learned tonight that House Democrats plan on introducing their own resolution blocking Trump's border in his border wall plan. Thoughts?
That doesn't surprise me. Look, the president had it right from the beginning, right? He knew he was going to be sued. Everything he's done since he's been president to try to secure this border and try to enforce the immigration laws, every time he has made a move, he's been sued. And he was right. Remember him and Chief Justice had it out over some tweets saying, well, the Ninth Circuit's weak and they're going to shut.
Totally right. John Roberts should be ashamed of himself for saying what he said.
Sure enough, they went to the Ninth Circuit. You didn't see him going to the Fifth Circuit. They go to the Ninth Circuit. So, of course, they judge shop. But I think he wins this in the long run. I really do.
Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland, Republican, he may run primary President Trump. Good luck, Larry. Anyway, he said this on CBS this morning.
I think the president made some real mistakes here, and I don't think declaring this, using the declaration of emergency powers is the right thing to do, and I think it should be challenged. We've exaggerated what's going on at the border.
I don't know how much time he spent on the border, Tom. He's obviously Maryland is bordering on insanity with taxes, but it's not a border state.
I can guarantee you he hasn't been to the border. He hasn't talked to one man and woman in green. He certainly hasn't looked at the data on the border. You know, let's just look up the Border Patrol this past year. Arrest of MS-13 members up 170%. Seizure of fentanyl is up 184%. 17,000 criminals arrested crossing the border. ICE arrested 138,000 criminal aliens in this country here illegally that committed crimes. They didn't just appear here. They came through the southwest border. If anybody doesn't see it, they're ignoring the facts. And it disappoints me. Well, their state's considering a state sanctuary law right now.
Of course. Maryland, go all across Maryland. It's a haven for illegal immigrants. Same thing with Northern Virginia. Fairfax County. Go out to Prince William County. I mean, this whole area is now dealing with
I'm surprised Larry Hogan says this since they have a serious MS-13 problem in Maryland.
We had the murder. The girl stabbed how many times? I think it was in Maryland or Virginia, but it was a horrific crime. This is what Elizabeth Warren, of course, I won't do my impersonation, but you heard it during the break. It's actually pretty good.
Pretty good.
Tom, let's hear what she has to say.
What would constitute a national emergency?
Oh, let's do the list. Climate change, gun violence, student loan debt, right off the top.
student loan debt.
It's incredible, you know. She talked about gun violence. Democrats just passed some legislation in the House that if an illegal alien attempts to buy a firearm, ATF's not even allowed to contact ICE. And she's talking about gun violence. So she wants to, take away the Second Amendment from the U.S. citizens, but it's perfectly okay for illegal aliens to try to purchase a gun, which is a felony. They want ICE to turn their back on felonies.
Oh, DUI, they don't want DUI to matter anymore. So if you run over someone, you're a legal immigrant, get to stay.
10,000 people a year died in DUI, and Menendez doesn't think that's a crime.
Tom, I also want to get your thoughts on this. Last Saturday in El Paso, Texas, we were just broadcasting, we saw leftist lunacy on full display. Protesters went into a Border Patrol museum and decided to deface pictures honoring fallen agents. But that's not all. They also decided to call Border Patrol agents murderers.
Actually, a lot of these Border Patrol agents are murderers. That's what they are. They have murdered families. They have murdered youth. They have slashed any humanitarian aid that's given to them at the border like water.
We need to push back in every way we can.
I don't know if that was an indigenous person. I'm not quite sure what was
Well, first of all, I find it disgusting because they actually defaced a monument to 128 fallen heroes that died in line of duty protecting this country. They defaced that monument. They're ignorant because they don't know the facts of what they're saying. Everything they said, I watched that video, they're wrong. I'm 100% of things they said are absolutely wrong. And they're cowards. And they're cowards, I say this because a lot of them are wearing masks. If they really want to protest the Border Patrol, don't go to a museum that's not even owned by the Border Patrol and run by retirees. Go to a Border Patrol station and deface a Border Patrol station. Let's see how far they get with that. They won't. They're cowards. They're hiding, and they hide behind a false message to American people.
Tom Homan, they're either defacing statues honoring the end of World War II, ripping down statues, historical markers, or defacing monuments.
Not one of those protesters has a backbone or the bravery to wear that uniform and defend this country. I doubt anyone has ever served their country in any capacity.
Victimhood mentality. We started